Welcome everyone to the factory that manufactures motorcycle fuel tanks in Pakistan. Today we will explore together the completely handmade manufacturing process from raw materials. Look at this giant steel coil. It weighs hundreds of kilograms. The worker begins to unroll the steel coil entirely by hand. He greedily pulls. He pulls the steel sheet out to its full length across the concrete floor, to prepare for the next precise measuring step. The craftsman takes the measuring tape, and starts marking the required cutting dimensions. Every mark must be extremely accurate, to ensure the quality of the final product. And here is the largest industrial steel shear I've ever seen. With just one powerful press, the blade cuts through this thick steel sheet. The power of the lever makes cutting metal much easier. This shear can cut steel bars several meters long in a single operation. We can see many steel sheets already cut and stacked. Each steel sheet must be of uniform size to fit the pressing mold. Now the workers switch to using handheld shears to refine the edges. Manual cutting requires steady hands and extremely sharp eyes. A small mistake can ruin the entire sheet and waste raw materials. The finished steel pieces are neatly stacked and waiting for the next step. The workers are checking the flatness of each steel sheet before sending it for further processing. Now it's time to see the steel blank being bent into a semicircular shape. The hydraulic press is simple but amazingly effective here. Multiple layers of steel are stacked to increase productivity. The pressure from the press deforms the metal according to the mold. The result is that the flat steel sheets suddenly take on a curved round shape. This is only the initial step. The final shape still needs many more processes. The semicircular steel blanks are moved to the main pressing area. Pay attention to how the workers position the steel blanks into the mold. Each cycle of pressing creates one complete half of the fuel tank shell. The large hydraulic press slams down with tremendous force. The characteristic loud noise of the metal pressing process in the factory. In the blink of an eye, the steel sheet is formed into half a fuel tank. The worker quickly removes it and prepares for the next pressing cycle. This continuous working speed allows them to produce hundreds of units per day. The tank shell halves are stacked in piles waiting for the next treatment. Now we move to the edge and surface finishing area. A worker loads the shell halves onto the rolling machine to even out the edges. Two high-speed rotating blades scrape away the sharp excess edges. This helps prevent danger for the user during later assembly. The rolling machine operates continuously. Each tank is processed one by one. The metal surface becomes noticeably smoother and more even. Next is the step of drilling the hole for the fuel cap at the top of the tank. The worker places the tank on the vertical drill and carefully aligns the position. The drilled hole must be absolutely precise so the cap fits tightly without leaking. Coolant oil flows down to reduce the temperature of the drill bit during machining. The worker checks the freshly drilled hole before moving to the next step. Now comes the step of drilling the mounting holes to attach the tank to the motorcycle frame. These holes are drilled at fixed points according to the standards of each motorcycle model. The entire process is still running very rhythmically and efficiently. You can see the workshop is quite cramped but optimally arranged. Each worker specializes in a separate task in the production line. The next step is surface repair. Using skilled manual techniques, the craftsman sits on the floor and places the fuel tank between his legs to hold it firmly. He taps evenly with a hammer on the surface to level out all the dents caused by the press. This technique requires the craftsman to have a very good sense of touch. Each light tap adjusts the curvature of the tank body. After finishing, the tank surface becomes smooth and shiny, looking like plated metal. The worker checks all the drilled holes again before taking it for welding. The two tank shell halves are joined together to form A sealed fuel chamber. At the welding area. Bright sparks fly, dazzling to the eyes. Spot welding quickly connects the two metal pieces. The worker moves the welding tongs along the seam. To ensure it is airtight. Smoke and dust rise from the welding process, but do not affect the quality of the weld. After welding, the fuel tank is checked for airtightness. The welds must be neat and even with no gaps. Quality control staff inspect each one before packaging. Products that meet the standards are placed into cardboard boxes for shipping. The cardboard boxes are clearly labeled with the brand and quantity of parts inside. The packaging process is carried out by another group of workers. They neatly arrange the fuel tanks into the boxes in orderly rows. Each box is sealed with tape and clearly labeled for easy identification. The inventory quantity in the warehouse is very large to meet market demand. It can be seen that this product is exported to many different countries. Back to the production area. Workers are preparing a new batch of raw materials. A new steel coil is brought into the workshop. To continue the repeating process, the factory operates day and night to meet pre-ordered shipments. That is the final door, leading to the main road for goods transportation. There are still many other complex stages. Please stay tuned for the next part, because this is only one part of the full production video series. Continue the journey, exploring the production line of motorcycle fuel tanks in Pakistan. The next step is deep processing, creating a deep semicircular shape for the metal blank. The worker skillfully places the steel sheet into the giant hydraulic stamping mold. With extremely high pressure, the steel blank is compressed to create a deep curve. The pink safety guard helps the craftsman stay away from danger when the machine is operating. One press, and the fuel tank shell begins to take its basic shape. The entire process still requires smooth coordination between people and machines. After pressing is complete, rows of semi-finished products are neatly stacked. The craftsman quickly removes the excess material around the freshly pressed metal edges. The cutting machine automatically uses high-speed rotating blades to trim the edges. In just a moment, the excess steel scraps fall onto the workshop floor. The precision at this step determines whether the two shell halves can be perfectly joined later. Piles of steel scrap beside show the very high production rate. Now we move to the area for processing. Smaller details on the tank shell. A specialized hole punching machine is operating continuously without rest. Workers place each tank shell into the fixed position on the machine table. Each cycle, the machine runs to create a precise rivet hole or screw hole. The craftsman's skill is shown through extremely fast and agile operations. The mounting hooks and brackets are also attached at this stage. Looking closely, you can see the structure of the punching machine is very basic but highly effective. The durability of the old equipment is what surprises many people. And here is the most important moment. Spot welding to join the two tank halves. Two electrode tongs are clamped tightly onto the seam of the tank shell. High-intensity electric current creates extremely high temperature at the contact point. The metal melts locally to bond the two thin steel sheets into one solid piece. Electric sparks fly sparkling like fireworks in the dimly lit factory. A craftsman moves his hand steadily to ensure the weld is completely sealed with no leaks. Two automatic welding machines run along the edge, completing the sealing stage. Smoke and dust rise from the welding process, but do not reduce the worker's concentration. The fuel tank now has a complete mechanical structure. Many tanks are ready for the airtightness test. The next area is surface finishing to polish the entire tank body. Workers use a grinder with a high-speed rotating grinding wheel. Sparks fly in all directions when touching the hard metal surface. The purpose is to remove welding marks and smooth out the wrinkles caused by the pressing process. The skill requires excellent control of the angle to avoid damaging the thin walls. The surface gradually becomes shiny after several passes with the grinder. This process is repeated continuously with hundreds of units per day. Another craftsman also performs the same task with very skillful left-hand technique. The large fan at the back helps blow away harmful metal dust from the air. The slanted lighting shows the reflective shine of the newly polished metal layer. The dull gray tanks are transformed to look like expensive chrome-plated ones. The first step in assembling the cap and safety valve. A craftsman is installing the internal anti-slosh bar inside the fuel tank. This metal bar helps reduce the rattling noise. When traveling long distances, he uses light hammer taps to adjust the position of the metal bar for a perfect fit. This is a small detail, but it contributes to improving the final user experience. And now comes the most important test, the water leak test. The finished fuel tanks are taken down to a tank containing cleaning chemical solution. A tube of compressed air is inserted into the tank opening to pump strong pressure. If any weld has a leak, air bubbles will immediately rise to the water surface. The worker shakes the tank back and forth to ensure the entire volume is tested. Not a single drop leaks, and no bubbles escape. Products that pass the standard are lifted out and left to dry before packaging. This manual process lacks modern machinery, but is very reliable. A cool breeze from the open window sweeps through the stuffy factory. The hardship of the workers is clearly visible in every muscle. From the initially flat steel sheet, it has now become an essential item. We see the power of human hands transforming everything. The supporting industry here is developing very strongly, making a major contribution to supplying components for the local market. Especially in the segment of affordable, good quality popular motorcycles. This product can be seen on many different motorcycle models. The competitive price comes from cheap labor and a streamlined process. However, environmental and occupational safety issues still need more attention and improvement. Metal dust and welding fumes are everywhere, harmful to health if inhaled for long periods. Nevertheless, the passion for traditional craftsmanship remains burning strong. They see this as an opportunity to earn a living for their families. Witnessing children also participating to help their parents in the workshop. This raises deep reflections about the socio-economic life in rural areas. Back to the finished product. Its beauty is no less impressive than imported goods. The elegant curves and smooth surface are enough to satisfy even picky customers. A boy wearing a cloth cap on his head is standing waiting to receive the finished product. He holds the heavy tank, with curious eyes looking at the camera. He proudly displays the product, as if it were a work of art. The perfect fuel tank reflects the humble workshop scene. Ending this special video series about this fascinating secret manufacturing process.